Welcome back to September's special Monday events, the Cryptids, and each week we're focusing on another one of these legendary beasts and the horror movies that have been based on them. On this episode, we're heading up to the northeast of the US to check out the Mothman, and if you don't know the backstory here, we're gonna make a visit to the man with the full info. That's right, it's the Crypto Hunter.
So here I am, guys, desperately trying to enjoy my weekend when Josh from Movie Timelines insists that I talk about the Mothman in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Take it easy, bruh.
He was first spotted in November 1966 when a couple couples who were driving through an area that harbored an old World War II munitions factory claimed they spotted a man with a 10-foot wingspan and glowing red eyes circling around their car. As 1966 went into 1967, hundreds of more people claimed they saw this moron.
Easy.
Skeptics claimed that the Mothman was nothing more than maybe a sandhill crane that had wandered off its migration path into the Point Pleasant area. It's a large bird, 7-foot wingspan, reddish coloring around its eyes. But still, that doesn't explain the premonitions that the people in the area had. The feeling of dread that they had, that something awful was about to happen. And then in December of 1967, it did, when the Silver Bridge collapsed, killing 46 people. Some say the Mothman was there to warn them. A whole year of warnings. Some say, however, that the Mothman caused the accident. And I am with that camp, because I consider the Mothman to be the Axl Rose of the cryptid universe. He's always late to his own show. Yeah, I watched his movie on a plane. I didn't buy the headphones, but I got the gist of it. Dude was concerned about Mulder's lip health. I mean, I know it's cold and windy in West Virginia, but who made him Pope? And another thing, I don't think a movie about a chapstick fetishist destroying a bridge is that entertaining. Watch the kink shaming. This monster is nothing more than a failed Cirque du Soleil performer, a failed parlor trick magician, a failed bridge inspector. He is a tight-wearing, no-wing having, pothead mama's boy.
All right, now that we're in the know, let's check out the movies.
Number 5. 2016 gave us the simply titled Moth, which gives us a teacher and one of her students who are studying Mothman sightings, and they head off to Hungary together to investigate 22 recent sightings in the area, and the backstory is briefly addressed in the lecture scene. It's found footage, and it's really odd at times, since Thora here really doesn't act very professionally most of the time, and her interplay with Adam is weird, especially since they share a hotel room, and I'm not so sure that a school would sign off on a teacher going on a trip with one male student and sharing a single hotel room. Though the film was a British production, the two leads have thick accents, which is kind of to their benefit since it's kind of hard to tell if their acting is completely terrible. And of course, their car breaks down in the middle of nowhere and then goes into that old found footage routine of people wandering around the woods with nothing really happening and bickering non-stop.
It's like an old cemetery.
It's not really. It's more like someone stuck a bunch of small sticks in the ground.
As production value goes, this probably cost $5 and took 10 minutes. I mean, it's the exact formula of the original Blair Witch movie. And if this was a list of Blair Witch knockoffs, this would be near the top. And maybe I should do a Blair Witch knockoff list now that I'm thinking about it. If you're watching this because you're interested in the Mothman legend, you're coming up empty, since the lore is essentially just a setup for things, and everything afterwards has no connection to the Mothman. And the ending is a pretty expected twist that just defies all logic because
I'm gonna spoil it. The
whole thing is faked by the teacher, and it's because they're making a movie, and they just didn't tell the student because they figured his reactions would be more authentic that way. Because, rigging everything up, not knowing how an actor will react because they don't know it's all fake, is so much easier than just getting someone to, act scared. Number 4. Back in 2010, there was an entry simply titled Mothman, which was made for the Sci-Fi Channel, which, not a great sign. But your favorite ship's mechanic and mine is here, and this group of kids tells the legend of the Mothman, and it goes into pure ludicrous territory when one of their group accidentally drowns. So they decide to not only lie and say that he slipped and hit his head, but I mean, they actually hit him in the head with a rock to sell it, and then they all take turns doing it, because I guess this is less suspicious than just saying that he drowned?
This, right here, is the dumbest thing that I've seen in a horror movie in the past couple of years. And you know that I have seen some dumb stuff.
It jumps ahead 10 years, and Catherine is sent home to cover a story, and she almost runs her friend over and stops in the middle of the street. And there's a whole thing about people honking at her, and her friend is telling the cars to just hold on, like 4 times. Which Catherine she just stands there. Just pull your car over and talk, lady. She just stands there like nothing else is going on in the world, and her friend is like, hey, hold on, other cars, while she apparently doesn't even realize that other cars are even there, and hers is right in the middle of the freaking street. Before long, members of the group are being attacked by a CGI thing with wings that I hate to tell them doesn't look like a moth, and the town has a Mothman festival, and they give a quick rundown of the actual legend, and the attacks continue, and I guess this thing comes at you through reflections, because, moths, reflections, come on.
When you think of moths, you think of reflections, right? That's a thing, isn't it?
They add to the whole Mothman thing by making it an evil spirit from the Old West with a native chief, and he tells her the spirit can come through anything reflective, and she makes a point to say that there's nothing reflective in his house, except for his glasses, and he says that Mothman is tied to the town and will only appear when all the conspirators are in the town, so it's Catherine's fault that it's back. And they actually do tie back to the bridge collapse by saying it destroyed the bridge to get its victims as they were leaving town. Pretty soon, the Mothy one is attacking the whole town, and at least this one has a little bit to do with the original legend, I guess. Number 3. There was an interesting case back in the year 2000 with a film called Mothman that was never actually released. Oddly enough, it's the only live-action film from Doug Tennepoel, video game creator and the guy responsible for Earthworm Jim. Problems occurred behind the scenes when pre-production delays cost the film most of its budget, shrinking down from $650,000 all the way to $150,000, which then also got chopped down to a mere $60,000 for actual shooting. Issues plagued the production, and a final edit was never completed, though a trailer was released. And back in 2010, Tennepoel stated that it's a hard film to finish, and said that the current edit was only about 20 minutes long, and it was a film that just didn't want to be completed. Number 2. The next entry was in 2014 with The Mothman's Curse. And it's another British production, and that's the second one on this list. And there's just something unusual about a cryptid is localized in the U.S. being made in the U.K. I mean, I guess it's the equivalent of a bunch of those Loch Ness movies being made in the U.S. It takes place in an old museum and is in black and white, actually, and there's some bizarre occurrences that are, frankly, really hard to see. The quality is just terrible, and I want to say that the grainy nature of the film enhances the eeriness of it all, but it doesn't, because I spent way too much time trying to figure out what I was supposed to be looking at. There's this whole weird experimental film vibe going on, and I seriously cannot believe that this film is from 2014, since it feels like something from the mid-90s, like they were trying for that whole Clerks feel, and I'm not sure if it was due to budget restrictions or if it was a genuine stylistic choice, but either way, it's one of the hardest things I've ever had to get through. The story is just practically non-existent. I mean, there's very little link to the Mothman lore, and it just uses a moth-looking villain, I think. It looks more like a cheap Batman costume, and nothing happens in this whole movie. It's just painfully dull, ugly to look at, and completely incomprehensible.
I hate this way more than normal.
Number 1. But really, the ultimate Mothman film will always be the one that most people know about, and that's 2002's The Mothman Prophecies from Mark Pellington, who had come from a big background in music videos. It features Richard Gere starring in a movie about an urban legend that I guess doesn't include gerbils, and one night his wife sees a mysterious winged figure and dies shortly after a brain tumor. 2 years later, he meets Officer Linney, who certainly looks like a police officer from a small West Virginia backwoods town, right? She tells of various sightings around town of what appears to be a Mothman, sharing cryptic messages with people about 99 dying before a plane crashes with 99 people on it. A series of bizarre circumstances ensues with additional premonitions and a mysterious voice on the phone. But is John just going crazy? Or are there sinister forces at work? Are the voices helping him or taunting him? He's forced to choose between playing the voices game and moving on with his life, and chooses Linney just in time for the final prophecy to come true as the Silver Bridge collapses, causing massive chaos and killing that utilizes every stock sound effect scream in my collection, which was pretty distracting. With John narrowly rescuing Connie, making this the only film to actually delve into the real legend of the Mothman instead of just using it as sort of a backdrop.
So there you have it. It's, 4.5 movies, almost 5 movies about the Mothman. There were more Mothman movies than I thought, but not a whole lot. And especially when you consider that most of these movies don't actually have anything to do with the Mothman himself, and more just use the name Mothman. But really not many of these were any good. I did like the Mothman Prophecies, but it was definitely not as good as I remembered it being. But it was still pretty enjoyable, but most of the rest of them were pretty skippable. I would skip them. If you have any other movies of the Mothman that you know about, or if you have your own Mothman stories to tell me, let me know down below in the comments. Go check out the Crypto Hunters channel. I know it's kind of hard because for some reason cryptocurrency stuff keeps coming up, but I'll put a link to it down below so you can check it out as well too. And of course, check out my Patreon page. These guys over here they help support the channel, which you can as well by going to patreon.com/movietimelines and helping keep the channel going. But in the meantime, I'll just see you very shortly for another great video and some more cryptids. So thanks a lot, guys. Bye-bye.